Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Wei Zhongxian was the most powerful eunuch of the Ming Dynasty and the only one who almost had the chance to claim the throne. He was known as 9,900 years old. His power and influence made many people feel both fearful and resentful. People commonly regarded Wei Zhongxian as a great traitor. But few knew that during his lifetime, the Ming Dynasty's fortunes were never in jeopardy. The Ming Dynasty was able to completely suppress the power of the later Qing, i.e., the Manchus, and after his death, the Ming Empire only lasted another 17 years before its downfall. Thus, he was undoubtedly the last, protective talisman of the Ming Dynasty. And his existence provided the empire with its final, breathing space. So, who was Wei Zhongxian in history? Why did such a powerful eunuch ultimately lose to a young emperor who was only 17 years old? Here, let's delve into history to uncover the truth and explore the crazy life of the 9,900 years old great eunuch, Wei Zhongxian. Regarding Wei Zhongxian's background, there are two common accounts in historical records. One says he came from a poor family and, in desperation, castrated himself. Another suggests he was a thug who lost all his money in a bet, leaving him with nothing but his underwear, and out of regret, he castrated himself. However, regardless of the version, the historical records often describe Wei Zhongxian as someone shrewd, capable, and skilled in flattery and sycophancy. In addition, he was said to be handsome, well-built, skilled in horseback riding and archery, able to shoot with both hands, and proficient in archery. This suggests that the authors of these records were deliberately slandering him. In ancient times, poor in literature, rich in martial arts, owning horses or a good bow was an expensive luxury, especially for an impoverished thug. If we look at Wei Zhongxian's equestrian and archery skills, it is clear that his family was quite wealthy, as otherwise, he wouldn't have had access to these luxuries. The Zhuozhongji, Records of the Wine Jar, also records that Wei Zhongxian had an uncle who worked in the imperial palace. It is likely that his understanding of court matters came from this uncle. Because of this connection, he was able to enter the palace and attach himself to Sun Xian, the head of the Sili Jian and the chief eunuch of the Eastern Depot. Using his honeyed words, Wei Zhongxian first flattered and befriended high-ranking eunuchs such as Wei Chao and Wang An. At the time, Wei Chao was busy currying favor with Wang An and serving the crown prince, Zhu Yuxiao, and had little time to spend with his lover, Kushi. As a result, Kushi became infatuated with the handsome, well-built Wei Zhongxian, and with her help, he successfully rose to a position where he became one of the eunuchs serving beside the crown prince. This laid the foundation for his later rise to power. In 1620, a rather bizarre sequence of events occurred in the Ming Dynasty. Within the span of a single month, the imperial throne changed hands 3 times. On August 18, Emperor Shenzong, Zhu Yijuan, passed away, and on the 28th, Emperor Guangzong, Zhu Changluo, succeeded him. Zheng Guifei presented him with 8 beautiful women as a congratulatory gesture. But less than 10 days later, the already frail Emperor Guangzong fell ill. After taking a pill on the 26th of the following month, he died, following in the footsteps of his father. Soon after, the 16-year-old Emperor Shizong, Zhu Yuxiao, ascended the throne. And Wei Zhongxian was promoted to Sili Jian Bingbai Taiguan, chief eunuch of the imperial secretariat. The position of Bingbai Taiguan was typically held by only the most powerful eunuchs, which shows that at this point, Wei Zhongxian had become the most powerful eunuch in the court, the head of the inner officials. Historical records at this time also claim that Wei Zhongxian could not recognize a single character, yet a Bingbai Taiguan had to participate in issuing imperial edicts, which required literacy. Therefore, this position, in theory, should not have belonged to Wei Zhongxian. But since he had strong connections, especially through the crown prince's wet nurse, he secured the position. This suggests that the authors of these records were trying to insinuate that Wei Zhongxian was illiterate and rose to power purely through his relationships with women. However, in reality, social interaction is an extremely sophisticated skill, and flattery requires a certain level of intelligence. If Wei Zhongxian was truly illiterate, how could he have manipulated a group of learned eunuchs and court officials, eventually seizing absolute power? At the time, the Donglin Party was rising in power. These scholars from the Jiangnan region, who occupied the moral high ground, did nothing useful but loved to propose paper generals' ideas and engage in impractical discussions. Emperor Shizong of the Ming Dynasty hastily ascended to the throne and had no time to learn the ways of governing. Additionally, he had a great passion for woodworking, so he delegated power. Taking advantage of Emperor Shizong's trust, Wei Zhongxian, along with the Ku clan, eliminated their rivals and gradually seized control of the imperial court's power. The outer court, under the influence of the Donglin Party, saw many officials who were genuinely dedicated to their duties being squeezed out. As a result, numerous officials flocked to Wei Zhongxian for protection, using his support to launch a counterattack against the Donglin Party, which eventually led to the targeting of Wei Zhongxian himself. In early summer of 1622, a hailstorm occurred. The conservative members of the Donglin Party immediately seized upon the event, claiming that the hail was out of season and that it must be a divine warning from heaven. Signaling discontent with the emperor's favor toward Wei Zhongxian, whom they considered a treacherous minister. The result was predictable: these individuals were dismissed from their positions. There were many similar incidents. In the first 2 years, Wei Zhongxian was on the defensive, relying heavily on Emperor Shizong's favor to avoid being overthrown. However, in the 3rd year, the situation reversed when Wei Zhongxian was appointed as the head of the Eastern Depot. From that point onward, Wei Zhongxian demonstrated what it truly meant to be disabled in body, but unyielding in spirit. Emperor Shizong, absorbed in woodworking and unable to extricate himself, would be so engrossed in his craft that when he was concentrating on pulling strings and brushing ink, Wei Zhongxian would take the opportunity to present matters to him. Emperor Shizong, frustrated, would send him away with a dismissive, "I already know, just handle it yourself." As a result, Wei Zhongxian's actions became more reckless. He increased the number of the inner imperial guards to 10,000, composed entirely of eunuchs, who followed only his orders. Clad in armor and carrying swords, they moved freely in and out of the palace, wielding power and intimidating court officials. Wei Zhongxian built a vast network of loyal followers. His subordinates included the 5 tigers, 5 bows, 10 dogs, 10 children, and 40 grandchildren. The 5 tigers were civilian officials with positions ranging from ministers to the Grand Minister of Rights. The 5 bows were military officers, with the lowest rank being that of the commander of the Imperial Guard. Wei Zhongxian would not accept anyone who wasn't ruthless enough. While the 5 tigers and 5 bows appeared respectable, the children and grandchildren, as well as the dogs, were another matter entirely. Among the officials, many sought to ingratiate themselves with Wei Zhongxian, hoping to gain favor. For example, Wei Guangwei, the Minister of Personnel at the time, sought to curry favor with Wei Zhongxian by emphasizing their shared surname. When Wei Zhongxian's power was not yet supreme, he referred to him as elder brother, then later changed it to uncle, gradually lowering the terms of address. Many other officials followed suit, calling Wei Zhongxian their godfather or even their great-grandfather. As for the 10 dogs, their situation was even worse. 2 individuals were especially notable. The first was Zhou Yingqiu, the leader of the 10 dogs. Though he was neither a skilled scholar nor a capable warrior, he was an excellent cook, and Wei Zhongxian loved his braised pig's feet so much that he promoted him to left minister of the Imperial Secretariat. The second was Chao Qingcheng, who constantly lingered at Wei Zhongxian's door, offering his dog-like services. His excessive flattery was so unbearable that even Wei Zhongxian grew tired of him. When Wei Zhongxian eventually drove him away, he claimed that the father-son bond would never be forgotten, crying for a long time before leaving. Of course, some were better at flattering Wei Zhongxian. A government official from Zhejiang even built a temple for him, where he burned incense daily in reverence. Other officials quickly followed suit, and Wei Zhongxian was thrilled, often going out in disguise to visit his own statue. When Wei Zhongxian went out in disguise, the entourage was still impressive. He would travel in a sedan chair with a feathered canopy, pulled by 4 horses at full speed, guarded by the imperial guard with swords. He was accompanied by thousands of chefs, entertainers, and servants. Wherever he passed, the common people and officials would kneel and shout, "Long live the 9,900 years." Those who flattered him would bow 5 times and kneel 3 times, calling him grandfather of the 9,900 years. Though Wei Zhongxian would usually ignore them. Even while traveling, all official petitions still had to be submitted to Wei Zhongxian for review. So much so that both the court and the people knew only of Wei Zhongxian, but not of Emperor Shizong. Emperor Shizong of Ming was not afraid of Wei Zhongxian, because the art of ruling lies in balancing and utilizing power. No matter how great Wei Zhongxian's influence was, it was granted by the emperor, and many things were even carried out under his guidance. Emperor Shizong had grown up with Wei Zhongxian and knew well that Wei was loyal and devoted. Everything Wei Zhongxian had was given by Emperor Shizong, and he relied on him. Naturally, he hoped that Emperor Shizong would live a long life, and that the empire would remain strong. But fate played its hand, and Emperor Shizong passed away after only 7 years of reign, leaving Wei Zhongxian without his protector. As Emperor Shizong had no heirs, Prince Zhu Yujian ascended to the throne, becoming Emperor Shizong. Emperor Shizong had long heard of Wei Zhongxian's infamous power over the court and had no favorable view of the Eastern Depot, which he believed had wreaked havoc on the empire. Upon ascending the throne, he began to take steps to guard against and isolate Wei Zhongxian. The Donglin Party took advantage of this and petitioned, accusing Wei Zhongxian's faction. The Donglin Party listed the 10 unforgivable crimes of Wei Zhongxian. The first was standing next to the emperor, the second was disrespecting the empress. The third was meddling with military power, the sixth was disrespecting the sages, and so on. The 8th crime was concealing the military achievements of border soldiers, and the 9th was exploiting the common people, among others. To be honest, except for the 8th and 9th crimes, which were guilty, the rest were neither major nor minor. The Donglin Party even included disrespecting the sages, which may explain why the old conservatives weren't well liked. Emperor Shizong summoned Wei Zhongxian and had the 10 charges read aloud to him. Wei Zhongxian was terrified, and afterward, Emperor Shizong exiled him to Fengyang. Before he even arrived, however, another report came in accusing him of harboring fugitives. Emperor Shizong became furious and ordered the Jinyui, embroidered uniform guard, to arrest Wei Zhongxian. When Wei Zhongxian received the news, he realized his fate was sealed. He spent the night drinking with friends and then hanged himself. Afterward, his faction was also purged. Emperor Shizong's actions were bold, for Wei Zhongxian had 10,000 internal soldiers in the palace. Did they not fear provoking him to desperation? This also shows that even when Wei Zhongxian was pushed to the edge, he never considered rebellion. Before he died, Wei Zhongxian left a brief statement for Emperor Shizong. Only 8 words, but those words would weigh heavily on the fate of the Ming Dynasty. It was not until 17 years later, when Emperor Shizong hung himself from the southeast branch, that he realized the true meaning of Wei Zhongxian's 8 words. Wei Zhongxian's last words were, "If you promote the Donglin Party, the country will perish." When this message reached Emperor Shizong, it sank like a stone into the sea, creating no ripples. At this time, the entire court was engulfed in joy at the removal of Wei Zhongxian's power. Emperor Shizong believed he had rid the people of harm, showcasing his imperial authority. Little did he know, after removing Wei Zhongxian, the balance of the court was shattered. And the Donglin Party gained immense power, bringing endless harm. Once the Donglin Party held the reins of power. They demanded all officials be honest and serve the public, opposed corruption and bribery among the nobility, and vowed to eliminate the long-standing corruption in the administration. They garnered strong support from the lower levels of society, positioning themselves on the moral high ground. At first glance, the Donglin Party members seemed like a breath of fresh air. However, they were nothing more than a group of bookish pedants who rigidly adhered to outdated ideas. They spoke in endless classical references, eloquent when criticizing others, yet utterly ineffective when it came to real action. Take the example of warfare on the frontiers. This group of old pedants did nothing but drag their feet. If the frontline soldiers failed to repel the enemy, it was wrong. If they used strategy in battle, it was wrong. If they were not merciful enough to the enemy, that was also wrong. These scholars ought to have been thrown onto the battlefield as common foot soldiers and made to sing "Everything is wrong." They never experienced the suffering of the common people yet claimed to represent them, treating the entire world as if it were a book filled with sages. In their self-deception, the Ming Dynasty lasted only 17 more years before falling to the Qing army. At that moment, the leader of the Donglin Party, Chiang Ching-kuo, suddenly declared that he would follow the example of Yuan and drown himself in the river for his country. But as soon as he touched the water, he found it too cold and decided against it. Instead, he promptly surrendered, showing not even a shred of so-called noble integrity. Later, when the Qing army ordered Han Chinese men to shave their heads in submission, it sparked outrage. In traditional values, one's body and hair are gifts from one's parents, making shaving one's head worse than death for many, especially scholars who valued their hair above their own lives. Yet, at this crucial moment, Chiang Ching-kuo once again stirred up trouble. He claimed his scalp was unbearably itchy, so he shaved his head and grew a queue, embracing the new regime. And this was the so-called moral elite. By comparison, during Wei Zhongxian's time in power, the Ming Dynasty displayed remarkable resilience against the later Jin, the precursor to the Qing. Even under Nurhasai's full-scale offensives, the later Jin were unable to break through Shanhaiguan. However, after Wei Zhongxian's downfall, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Qing army soon breached Shanhaiguan with seemingly no resistance. What was behind this drastic shift? In truth, while Wei Zhongxian had a notorious reputation, he was not like the Donglin Party, who were all talk and no action. He actually accomplished a great deal for the Ming Dynasty. The nomadic tribes of the time relied heavily on war for survival, unlike the agrarian Chinese, who prioritized production. As long as Nurhasai could be contained outside Shanhaiguan, the later Jin would face increasing hardship. Wei Zhongxian understood this well and deliberately assigned the renowned general Wu Sangui to guard Shanhaiguan, ensuring the stability of the northeastern front. To sustain the Ming army's supplies, Wei Zhongxian advocated for the collection of commercial and maritime taxes in southeastern China. The wealthy Jiangnan region, home to many powerful gentry, generated millions of taels of silver annually from these taxes. For the impoverished Ming treasury, this revenue not only secured military provisions but also gradually strengthened the national economy. In contrast, for the drought-prone northwest regions, Wei Zhongxian reduced taxes and even restored long-neglected repairs to the Yellow River's waterways, effectively addressing long-standing problems. Wei Zhongxian worked tirelessly to maintain balance within the Ming Dynasty, but this also deepened his conflict with the Donglin Party. Many of the gentry aligned with the Donglin Party enjoyed tax exemptions, whereas Wei Zhongxian's policies imposed taxes on them. This fueled their intense resentment against him. Even as Wei Zhongxian's cannons repeatedly devastated Nurhasai's forces, the Donglin Party was scheming behind his back to undermine him. After the Donglin Party took power, they swiftly overturned Wei Zhongxian's commercial tax policies, shifting the tax burden from the wealthy gentry onto the common people. This completely disrupted the internal balance that Wei Zhongxian had maintained. The tax reforms plunged the Ming Dynasty into a severe financial crisis, shaking its very foundations. Many believe that if Wei Zhongxian had not died, the Ming Dynasty might have lasted longer, but its eventual downfall was inevitable. Even Emperor Chongzhen, after Wei Zhongxian's death, realized his contributions to the nation and later ordered an elaborate funeral for him. But by then, the Ming Dynasty was already on the brink of collapse, beyond salvation. This is the charm of history, because we never experience it firsthand, we are constantly forced to rethink our past perspectives. Wei Zhongxian may have had his treacherous side, but he undeniably made significant contributions to the Ming Dynasty in his own way. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.